Welcome to the Katie Black Show. This is season 9. I'm honored today. I have with me
Curt Bagby.
Hello, Curt. How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Okay, so usually at the beginning of my interviews, I just kind of learn about the person. So, where were you born / where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Washington State, up the peninsula, a place called Port Angeles.
And what was that like in a nutshell?
So rainy, gray. It was a great place to grow up. A little bit isolated on the peninsula over there, away from Seattle, away from the city. So it was kind of a cool place to grow up, but a little different. I'm now down in Arizona, a little bit different than where I'm at now. Everything is different about it, from the people to the weather to the culture to everything is different. But yeah, that's where I grew up.
Very cool. Any thoughts on, do you believe Seattle is like the mecca of grunge? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I guess I didn't know that until later, because I was never really into the scene of. I don't have a patient enough personality to sit in one spot and listen to an entire concert. I mean, I've been to a few concerts, but sitting and listening to music, I've kind of appreciated it a little bit later, more than what it was, but I wasn't there really to experience it.
Fair.
Doing all the other weird things that you do as a kid and stuff. So yeah, I didn't get to. I left Seattle. Oh, I'm sorry. I left Washington State at 18, and you're not even an adult at that point. Even though you're an adult at 18, you don't even have really experienced much. So kind of experienced my life experiences through the military and law enforcement, everything since that point has kind of, for good or better or worse, created what I am, more so than that area did.
Very cool. You mentioned that police officer. So for season 9, as everyone is learning, it's all about first responders. And so that's how I connected to you, and was just curious, how did you go down that path of becoming a police officer?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I actually didn't know what I wanted to be growing up. And I can remember being a little bit nerve-wracking because, all of these seniors in high school, they're all like, oh, I want to do this and that. And I truly did not know. I didn't want to be an astronaut. I didn't want to be all the things that everybody wants to be. So I just decided I would go to college and try to figure it out from there. And when I was in college, I learned that I was just too scatterbrained. I was having way too much fun. I couldn't focus. Like, I was not mature enough to focus without somebody telling me to focus, without somebody there, guiding and directing me and making me study and all of those things. And so I decided to join the military and pick the perfect parent, to make me do, to help manage myself. And it's kind of what the Army ended up being for me. So then I joined, and I had this weird experience where I actually picked what they call an MOS. I picked an area that wasn't well liked, but it provided the most benefit. So in other words, my GI Bill would have been much higher if I picked the absolute worst job in the world. And at the time, that was communication. And so I was like, fine, whatever I can get. Hopefully I'll be more mature when I get out of the Army and I can finish my degree and do all that kind of stuff. And while I was there, I had a guy tell me, this guy I didn't know, he kind of came out of nowhere and just told me, you're not. He goes, you're a cop. He goes, I've been watching you interact with people. You're a cop and you don't even know it yet. So you're not going to go into communication. And I was kind of like, oh, I thought it was a little bit strange. But he redirected me. He wasn't even my recruiter or anything. My recruiter didn't know the guy or anything. It turns out later I kind of asked those questions. So for whatever reason, that guy was watching me, told me that's what I should be. I should be a cop. And I followed that path ever since. It was kind of strange, but I guess he was right.
I love that story. Do you know his name?
No, at the time, I didn't think much of it. That wasn't really a significant story to me until later, because I ended up I went to Fort Riley, Kansas. I went to Europe. I went to a few places. Met a bunch of people that I consider family now, and a good friend of mine that I was friends with in the military. I went down to see him in Arizona after I was out of the Army, and I just went down to visit. Still only 22, 23 years old. Went down to visit, and I never left visiting him end up getting married, having kids, getting a job there, and all of that happened. So I would have never ended up here had it not been, meeting that person. So everything kind of was almost like a pre-picked path for me or something. It was really odd the way it all turned out. But I kind of used the resources I had to try to figure out who that was. And I even called my recruiter. Like, that was kind of a strange thing that guy would go out of his way. And he said, no, he goes, I remember you specifically because it was so weird. That guy came out of nowhere. Nobody knew him. He wasn't a recruiter. He was just some weird random, guardian angel ish person that just was there to kind of redirect me and then leave, and they didn't know who he was. And that was 20 years later, and that guy still remembered who I was because that was such a strange thing that happened, So as it turned out, I ended up going, instead of being communications, I go to military police. I go to Europe. I meet this guy. Meet this guy sounds strange, but I mean, ends up being a good friend of mine. We end up coming down here, and I was only coming to visit, and was offered a job and never left. So yeah, pretty crazy.
Pretty cool. So where was your first, what state did you work in as a police officer?
Arizona.
Arizona. And, I'm obsessed with generations and time frames. So is this 80s or 90s?
Mostly 2000s.
The 2000s.
Yeah.
And so what was that era, being a police officer? I always say, what was it like to be you?
So there's a huge difference between, so I right now is pretty difficult for law enforcement, or for pretty much all emergency services. Everybody's got their phones up and everybody's recording. I think what happens is, I think what makes it difficult is you're supposed to be trained, and you're supposed to go in with confidence, and all the training is supposed to get you on the right path of making the correct decisions. And the problem is that when you start seeing people second guessed, and everybody's recording and second guessing what you're doing, when your job is supposed to be react, it's really hard to react when you see people holding phones. That's pretty nerve-wracking, because the milliseconds that you're being forced to react to make a decision, everybody else has years and years and years to judge. So that's probably one of the scariest things. And clearly, if you're in law enforcement or any type of emergency services, you're not there worrying about being judged, but it's still there. It's still a factor. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of people are putting. The thought of being viral is pretty scary. So for me, I can say that a good portion of my career, early 2000s until, there was obviously internet the entire time, but being viral wasn't quite a thing for a very long time.
Right, because it's all about the camera on the phone thing, so. Yeah. So, and it happened. There was plenty of times where we would see people that they were recorded doing something. There were some pretty horrific incidents that were recorded, but I think going viral wasn't quite a thing for quite a long time. And now it seems that almost anything can put you in I guess, good as well. As long as you're in law enforcement for the right reasons, or I'll keep referring to emergency services, as long as you're in for the right reasons, and you're doing it for the right reasons, and your intentions are good, usually everything's going to work itself out. Right.
If you've got, if you're doing everything for the right reasons, and you're trying hard, and you've got no bad intentions, and you're just there to help, you're going to be fine. It's still, you can feel people watching. Yeah, it's odd.
When I guess too, in fairness, no matter what your occupation is, I feel like if someone was to bring in a camera, it would alter. Even if we're being recording, if someone came in here with a camera crew, I don't know, it's just a different mindset, I guess. Yeah, I guess. So I get what you're saying without without actually knowing what you experienced.
Well, so I think what ends up happening, though, instead of just reacting, imagine you're trying to react, but you're now you're double thinking about.
You're questioning yourself.
You're questioning, is this the right thing to do right now? And then that extra millisecond can really change things as far as whether or not you're protecting yourself or whether you're protecting another person. that millisecond of deciding whether or not what you're doing is right that can be fatal, or have consequences of any type. So
Now, again, thousands of questions I want to ask.
Uh-huh.
But is there like a top 5 things you feel like citizens should know to like keep themselves safe? Does anything like stand out, or a couple things?
you know what is really funny? Funny is a bad word.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Ironic.
yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing about being a victim. Most of the time, you find in law enforcement, victims aren't always victims. They just lost the fight. They're both co-suspects, but then as things turned out, and truly, I mean, you can sit on the news and you can bash what I'm saying because there's clearly victims everywhere. I get that.
Oh,
But
I'm
most
saying.
but most of the time, when we're called to something, the person's not truly a victim. They might be playing the role of a victim. I mean, they put themselves. But a lot of times, if you put yourself in a bad situation, usually bad things are going to happen. And I can think of most of the high percentage of the times that I responded to things, the victim of the case that's being identified as a victim had some, you know, they had a little bit of some blame into the position they put themselves in, or you know what I'm saying. So, most of the time, people find if people just, you shouldn't have to really keep to yourself. But I mean, if you mind your business and stuff, and you're not out at 2 a.m. putting yourself in bad situations, most of the time those people don't find themselves in bad situations. But usually, the victim, if Bob Smith, he's victim on April 5th, victim on April 20th, suspect on May 3rd, suspect. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times it's kind of the same cycle of people that are victims and suspects are just kind of rotating back and forth. I know that sounds a bit cynical, but I'll ask you, and I don't want to, like, clearly you don't have to answer this, but I mean, how many times have you had to call 911?
That's a great question.
How many times have you put yourself in a situation where you freaked out?
How many times have I would say under 10 times in my life.
And why is that? It's because you're not putting yourself in situations to where you have to call 911. And most of the times, if you do, it's because you just happen to be going by something, maybe you saw a vehicle accident or something like that. But it truly is, okay, let me ask you this. How many times have you called 911 where you're specifically a scared victim?
Like, I would say twice.
See? So out of all the years of experience in your life, that's a pretty low percentage because you don't put yourself in those situations.
Yeah, I guess the other ones is like I'm a witness to something suspect, going on.
I mean, I had a guy run to my house once with a knife, and he was screaming and running. It turned out he was trying to cut into sheetrock to save somebody from burning fire. At that moment, it looked a lot worse than it actually was. He just still had the knife in his hand. I had to make a quick assessment. Holy cow, this guy's running at me with a knife. He was doing what he could to get something out of something. It was a bad situation because of the situation, but it wasn't, an aggressive situation. So I ended up calling 911. But not being not as a cop, as a citizen, I can only think of a few times that I've called 911. And most of those is because I feel like I was a little bit more observant than most people because I kind of see things a little bit differently. But, the top 5 things for people typically is just not putting yourself, looking at the odds of the situation you're in. And there's always things. There's always the person that left work and is walking through the dark parking garage, and that stuff happens. But then when you look at the 350 million people in America, and the only once a week highlight something bad like that, the numbers aren't really high. You know what I'm saying?
No, I do. Am I going to? Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, what is so I just study a lot of stuff, whether it's like valid or not, right? Is it true that eyewitness accounts usually are incorrect from your experience?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. They're not incorrect, but you and I can walk into a place right now and I don't know, Winnebago. I don't know why that word just came out. A red Winnebago drove by and drove over a cat. and a guy with a blue hat jumped out and ran off, and your account of that is going to be crazy different than mine. You know, the stuff that, because of your brain development and the way your brain works compared to mine, and what we pick up on as things we see, I don't think, a lot of times I think that people are considered bad people when their account of something changes or isn't accurate. But the way we receive information, there's a fun little drill they do with people. And when I would teach classes, we have like these citizens academies and stuff, or I've even taught at the police academy. And I would get a role player. People wouldn't know this was going to happen, but I have you and like just say 20 people in class, and I would get a person to come through wearing something kind of strange, like a Radiohead shirt and blue pants and a green hat, and I would have them come through and do some random thing and then run out and startle everybody, because you're not expecting somebody to come running into a classroom and do something crazy and run out. Truly, they weren't expecting it, and they all kind of sat there with their eyes wide, and then I would have them write down what they saw, and everything's completely different. What they were wearing, what they did, the color of their skin, everybody processed the information differently in their head. Part of it is because some of the people were so shocked by like if you and I were walking down the street right now, somebody got hit by a car in front of us, I can assure you our reactions are going to be different. You're probably a normal person, I'm not. You know, you're going to be shocked and absolutely blown away. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened or whatever. And I'm not saying I don't value human life. I'm just saying
a lot more.
I process things differently than you do, and I'm going to be a little bit more relaxed by it. And everybody does things differently or sees things differently, and so when I do those kinds of things, I think it really opens people's eyes. So I don't think, I mean, of course, people are going to have bad intentions at times, but I don't think a lot of times witness account isn't. I don't think it's necessarily a person intentionally lying or trying to, because if I see something right now and I don't know there's a recording of it, I'm going to do at least I am going to do my best at recounting that for you and trying to explain what happened. And then all of a sudden I find out there's a recording that's completely different. I'm going to be called a liar. Mm-hmm. But fact is that there's a very good chance I'm not lying. It's just that what my brain found important, and then sometimes unintentionally our brain will fill in the gaps. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we're going to come up with something, and then you're like, oh shit! You see the recording, you're like, oh, that's not even close. Uh-huh. But I got the highlights. So the witness account is a crazy thing. I would know that if you told me, if you're a dispatcher, you have to remember, this is really critical. A lot of times the person calling 911 isn't the person witnessing it. So somebody's giving that information to a witness, and that witness is giving it to a dispatcher who's trying to call it to either a call taker or a dispatcher, and then that person's trying to give it out over the air. It's already changed hands 4 or 5 times. So when you said a white Winnebago 30-foot long motorhome pulling a boat traveling northbound on I-10, well, actually, there's no northbound I-10, sorry. East or west I-10. You have to be, if you're law enforcement or you have to remember that could be just a normal white van pulling a jet ski. Mm-hmm. You'd have to really, you can't focus in on exactly what they're saying. You've got to really broaden your thought process and, what you think, depending on what it is you're looking for whatever the reason. But the average person gets up, do their thing, they go to work, go to school, do whatever they do, they go home. They're not trained to process critical things. Mm-hmm. And even if they are trained, no, they probably don't get to do it all the time, so they're not necessarily ready for it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I can tell you all the stuff they taught us in the academy was nothing compared to the first couple things we had experienced in real life in law enforcement. So, and by the time you finally get to where you're okay with it, you're done. You check out, you retire, and you're done.
Really? So wait, say that again so it sticks. So like when you finally get used to it, that's your key to.
I'm being a little bit facetious, but it's like at the end of my career, I was the undersheriff or chief deputy, depending on the second in command of the sheriff's office. And you would think that I would have experienced things, and I would still go out and work with the officers at times, and I would still see things like that I was completely surprised by. Like I can't believe you found a way to mess up your life this badly. The kind of a thing where people find very creative and unique ways to mess things up, whether it's messing up their life or someone else's life or whatever. So, I mean, humans do some pretty crazy things. And so you can go throughout the years and learn and learn and learn and keep learning and stuff. And it takes a long time to finally feel like, okay, I'm getting this rhythm. You know, I'm understanding. They say, I think the average, I'm being a bit facetious, but I mean, I think they say most officers aren't efficient and confident with what they do until about the 7-year mark. I mean, you can be good, and it doesn't mean that they're not ineffective. I mean, it doesn't mean they're ineffective. It doesn't mean they're not confident in what they're doing. But as far as like being comfortable in your skin as an officer and feeling good about what you're doing and feeling like you have the answers, it takes a long time because people find so many ways to mess things up.
I was going to say, I've talked to just a handful of officers, so I haven't talked to that many, but I also get the sense that whether the individual had it beforehand, like before they took the job, there seems to be like a sixth sense about just being you, like maybe things are going to get weird before they happen, or even just like, I mean, not that a lot of people can, but like, can you just tell when someone's just like absolutely like lying their ass off?
Yeah, so I think what happens is we've got nonverbal cues that we get used to. If we try, I mean, there's sometimes that you talk about, when I was talking earlier about kind of getting comfortable in your skin as an officer and all that kind of stuff. So when you start talking to people, I think one of the most critical things when you're talking about whether or not you're a good officer or a good paramedic or a good doctor or a good teacher is how you as a person process information. Because some people are good listeners and they can process audio. Some people are more visual. Some people are, hands-on and all that kind of stuff. So, that definitely is a factor as to what is going to make you. So there's officers that are really good at DUIs and traffic stops. And there's officers that are really good at stopping and interacting with people and working a more community-oriented, like what's happening in the community and stopping burglars and stopping or hand-to-hand drug deals and stuff like that. There's officers that are really good at teaching, and they go around the community and try to communicate the community-oriented policing philosophy. So everybody's got these different things. So I mean, you might have an officer sitting there that is thinking that doesn't pick up on certain cues, on whether it's a sixth sense or whether it's just the repetition of watching people and kind of rolling your eyes like, oh, that person's lying, because there's so many different ways of doing it. I have a funny theory about interviews that for me has been super effective, and it's just simple as uncomfortable silence. People have a tendency to not like silence. And one of the things I learned is, you sit down and I mean, a lot of times Hollywood puts this big emphasis on interviews. And I can tell you, if a person is super smart, like Hollywood loves the banter and the interaction between the smart detective and the smart bad guy, and they're going back and forth, and is he or she going to get them and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the really smart people, they're just not going to talk to you. It's, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, but so it's not often that you truly find yourself in a whodunit scenario where you're sitting there doing this stuff. But on occasion, when I've got a person who I really need to get information from them to kind of lock down the case. Surprisingly, what I will do is I will do all my paperwork in front of them quiet. And I might ask them a couple little questions not related, and I'll let them start talking. And they hate the silence. They can see what I'm writing. What is that? What are you writing? They don't like the silence, and they start filling it. And I've actually done complete interviews without saying more than 2 or 3 words. And I had a guy basically interview and interrogate himself, and he ended up admitting just talking without me saying a word. So there are funny little things that you can pick out about people without really having to do much, just by knowing, because not often, a lot of times I think that we use Hollywood as our cornerstone of what we think of the world is, right? Because that's what we're subjected to, sitting watching TV. And, not often is there a pre-planned crime where there's a murder and you're setting it up and you have to put all these things together. Most of the time, things happen passionately and quick.
Right.
There's not a whole lot to put together. You kind of know. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I would say 90-something% of the time, you know who the suspect is. You know what happened. You probably need to lock them down on it or something like that, and just kind of listen to what they're saying. And you can, a lot of times the easiest thing to do is just let them give their statement and then watch their reaction when you disprove every part of it. And then they start kind of, it's just not as, and I hate to keep using Hollywood as an example, but I kind of feel like that's what everybody knows.
Yeah.
That's kind of what everybody thinks about. Even when you watch, I don't like cop shows. I don't know what the new version of the Real TV or Cops or whatever it is now.
I mean, there's so many, but
Yeah, but basically following cops around with the cameras and stuff like that. A lot of times, when you talk about, earlier we were talking about decision making and stuff, holy cow. Like some of the stuff I have seen in the past where cops are being followed around by people with cameras, like, that's not for me.
nice.
It's not what I want to do.
So, in your experience,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think the percentage of people that murder are going to do it again?
Well, I can't claim I would never. So there are people that I know a couple guys that worked for the FBI, and they were profilers, and that was their job.
Right.
So the first thing I'm going to disclaim is I'm nothing like that. But if you're talking about life experiences and what I've seen, there's most of the people that kill other people. There's the few that you see or that we see where people just have it in them and they're just going to kill. We had a couple people. I-10 is pretty amazing. It goes right through our county, but it connects East Coast. Right in our area, it connects the Los Angeles area to Phoenix area. Mm-hmm. And clearly it does more than that. But I mean, there's a lot going on between those two major cities. So we get a lot of strange things that aren't necessarily predisposed to happen in our county that we get because they're filtering through, cutting across back to one or the other place. So, I mean, we've had a few people that were considered serial killers, and I'm being super careful to not pretend like I know what I'm talking about.
I understand.
But what I can tell you is that it's really important to know that most death from another person is something that's happening quickly and is involving money, passion, or sex. Mm-hmm. It's something somebody's so mad and they've lost themselves for a moment. And I mean, I feel like if I get super mad and you make me really angry right now, the first thing that comes to my mind is not to punch you in the face. That isn't how I deal with anger. I want to create space from you. I mean, if you're making me really angry, my feeling is I want to get the hell away from you as fast as I can. I just don't want to deal with you.
Okay, yeah.
But some people react differently. Some people want to, like, their reaction is punch somebody in the face and they get angry. Some people, they can't handle their anger and they go, there's different levels of how they react. I have been in prison, jail scenarios with these people, and I've talked to them, and these guys and gals that have ended up killing somebody are absolutely, on the surface, conversation as normal as can be. They just don't react well when they're put. Actually, this is another really cool conversation. If you met somebody before and you think they're a nice person, try inconveniencing them and see if you still think they're a nice person. Mm-hmm. Everybody's conditionally or situationally nice. I mean, not everybody.
But no, it's very, yes.
That's a fact. So, I mean, if you think, I love it, like I've got this guy that works for me, he goes, oh, Bob's a great guy. And I'm like, listen, have you ever inconvenienced Bob? Well, no. So, well, then you don't know that Bob's a great guy. I can tell you most people aren't great guys or gals or whichever you're talking about. A lot of people are just not that great at people because they are under as long as you don't inconvenience them or the situation's good or all the circumstances are good and it's a pleasantry. I see you in the store and you're a great conversationalist. I think you're a great person. Well, yeah,
Doesn't really mean
just just wait.
Yeah.
So, but some people react differently. So I mean, it's kind of extreme. But then, like I said, in the same scenario that I might just turn and walk away from you if you're in my face upset about something. This other person in the same situation might hit you. Another person might stab you. You know, it's kind of weird how people react, and I got to assume that. And for some reason, it seems like right now in 2025, people are a little bit more confrontational than they used to be. But I honestly think it's because, and I'm going to say something that's horrible,
I'm ready.
but I think a lot of people need to be punched in the face because a lot of people think they can walk up and confront somebody and there's not going to be any repercussions. And sometimes, and I'm not promoting violence, I'm just saying I see a lot of people who don't have a whole lot of physical backup going up and starting confrontations, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what you're doing. Like, why? You don't even know this person. That's a horrible thing for me to say.
Well, no, I mean, I think it just kind of bleeds into, like, no pun intended, but I think it kind of bleeds into just like, I've known some people that just want to start shit, and it's like, I always say, like, wait till you meet the wrong person.
Right. That you don't even know. You don't even know who you're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? That it's not how physically bad a person is that makes them scary. It's what they're willing to do. You know what I'm saying? And what a person's willing to do is a heck of a lot scarier to me than whatever physical attributes they have that make them menacingly scary. You know what I mean? So yeah, people are kind of scary, and I probably have veered so far off what you asked. I don't even know what the question was anymore.
That's the show.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. So I've got a little over 5 minutes left, and I'll go till Zoom cuts me off. But kind of dipping in. Well, there's so many questions I want to ask. Basically, I've also watched a master class on an FBI guy, and he said in his experience that departments should not use a lie detector test because genuinely what that's telling the potential criminal is like we don't have enough information. And so, because I know Ted Bundy passed a lie detector, I know there's a couple others. Like, what's your two?
I think they're crap.
Really? Okay.
I think they're absolute crap. I think that there's people that I know people that were cops, and I've known them from their past, and I know that what they've done. I mean, I'm not talking about killing people.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know people that have gotten over on lie detectors, and I think they're absolute crap because I just don't think if you can't use it in a court of law, like in criminal court, then why have it? That means it's subjective. It's an art form. And I know, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure that there's plenty of polygraphers that would get angry with me for saying that. But I mean, if you can't, I just don't like it because I know people that should have been cops that got caught for something later that they've been doing their whole life. And if that's the case, then how'd they get past it? You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't like those at all. For a different reason than what you just said, but I don't like them because they're just an art form and they're a bit subjective.
Yeah.
And the other thing you asked me earlier that I got off topic, I don't really have an answer for as far as like if the people are going to reoffend. But I do think if it's in your nature to kill somebody and it's easy to do, then I think that, yeah, then I'm not going to kill anybody unless the only way I'm killing somebody is if I'm stopping you. And the idea is not to try to kill someone. You try to stop them. If they happen to die, they die. But you stopped it from killing someone else. That's something that happens. That's something they've started. But I think the people who are already predisposed are going to do it again if they get away with it. Yeah.
Kind of just like, again, like what's it like to be used to, like, going back to when you would pull people over, was that kind of an intense moment as you're walking up to the car?
Yeah, it definitely can be. Because, okay, I'll make this quick so I know the other ones, but like if you go to a homicide or you go to an armed robbery, everything is up. Your training is taking place. You know what you're dealing with to some degree. There's people with guns or knives or whatever. But a traffic stop can be nothing more than a sweet little old lady who has a taillight out, or you just don't know what you're getting. So that can go from 0 to 100 figuratively in a second. And they're actually, out of all the law enforcement, most of the scenarios we go into or they go into, you can at least somewhat prepare yourself with training and being smart and being prepared and all this. And it's not always easy to prepare yourself for a traffic stop because you don't know who you're dealing with. Even if the car, the license plate might be somebody and somebody else might be driving it, could be a stolen car. You never know what you're dealing with. So that gets pretty scary. That's probably the most possibly volatile thing in law enforcement is probably just random traffic stop, especially when you as the officer think, oh, I'm just going to give this person a quick warning. You already have in your head because it was just something minimal, but you want to tell them that, I pull people over to be nice to tell them a taillight's out. In fact, I fix people's taillights because the thing has been popped out. Yeah. It's not always to give them a ticket. It's not always to be whatever. Sometimes you're just wanting to help a citizen out and you can see them all tense, like just relax. Just here to help you, and but that's not what you always get when you think you're going up, just to deal with a passive situation. Mm-hmm. You can't go with that kind of mindset.
Well, a little over a minute left. I always ask like nostalgia towards the end. So I was curious, growing up, did you have a favorite band or a favorite musician that you loved?
What's weird? My mom, I think parents push, you listen to what your parents listen to. And my mom loved like Billy Joel and Queen. Oh, cool. And Aerosmith and all of that. And that's kind of what I grew up liking. But now I just like alternative. I like everything kind of just loud and obnoxious. Okay. But yeah, that's funny that it came up because my mom was big into like even Elton John and stuff.
Great picks. Thank you so much for joining me. Before it cuts off, I want to say that. What do you think?
Thank you. I think it was great. You're a good conversationalist.
Yay. Awesome. And I'd love to, have you back.
If I have anything interesting you want to talk about, I can't imagine what it would be, but if I have anything interesting, you can call me anytime.